All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Reactionary Opinions. On this day, I think it's National or International Women's Day. That's Friday the 9th of August. We are spending our public holiday diligently bringing you another amazing show. D-Dog's here. What's going on, D-Dog?
Oh, just had another terrific day at work. I need to go pick up my wife after this. And on this Women's Day, I wish to venerate the most holy and honorable woman in history, the Panagia, the Theotokos, the Virgin Mary.
Amen, brother. Amen. Amen. Russell, what's going on there, brother?
Yeah, look, all good. Did a bit of enjoying the public holiday, did a bit of work this morning, went for a run, but I'm ready for this discussion this afternoon.
A little bit of shisanyama going on the grill a little bit later as well, huh?
Yeah.
That's it, my bro. That's the South African way. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boy, oh boy, do we have a humdinger of an episode for you guys today. Today's episode is we're going to be touching on some very, very, very touchy and hot button topics today. We're going to be talking about abortion and fertility and all of those nice things. Now, obviously, us being staunch reactionary Christians, I would assume we are all anti-abortion absolutists, which means we do not believe in abortion in any way, shape, or form. Simply, I think we should just sort of before we get into this, guys, if we could just sort of share our views, each of our individual views on abortion. Russell, you want to go first?
Look, my personal views on abortion is quite simply I fail to understand how the narratives that are portrayed in the media and that sort of thing are actually believed. It's just something I cannot get my head around, how we've been able to have this pull it off as something normal for the last 40 or 50 years worldwide. It's just the weirdest thing out, and the reasons given for it lack any sort of it's complete, it's nihilism on steroids. It's counter everything. I don't believe in it whatsoever. We can we can maybe discuss it in detail a little bit later, but that's just my view on it at the moment.
Perfect. Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, I find it very hard to talk about this as a man. I know I should make space for women of color to talk about this issue ahead of me, but seeing as how they're not here, I'll go for it myself. As Russell said, I am also very much against abortion. I think that if you try to arbitrarily pick a day for when a human begins and when a human doesn't begin, it's got to start at conception, basically. Anything like that, you're just basically, even supposing there is an argument for it, it's sort of like playing moral Russian roulette. So you're like, maybe it's a kid, maybe it's not. We're not sure. Click. So there's a huge, tremendous moral hazard to it at the very least. And I think it's a very destructive, very selfish, satanic operation. So basically, virtually all women who have abortions, not all of them, but the vast majority of them, particularly in Western countries, they utilize it for convenience sake. They'll try and say, well, what if in this, scenario, that happens 1 out of a million abortions, what about then? I'm like, well, you don't make policy based on exceptions, first of all. Mm-hmm. And secondly, even in those bizarre cases and unfortunate cases, even if you can't, raise a child yourself due to some sort of trauma, I understand there's plenty of people out there who would like to have your kids. and raise them as their own. So yeah, I'm totally against it.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd pretty much echo all the sentiments that Russell and Dylan have, specifically focusing on the fact that life begins at conception. Sorry, call me a zealot. I don't care. It's not up for discussion for me. Myself as someone who is now expecting a baby girl, and Dylan as well expecting a child, there is no room for discussion and stuff. Just to give you an example of an experience that we recently had. Myself and my wife went for a scan, more sort of a scan to check that the baby's healthy and all of that. And there's specific tests that you can do in order to find out if the child has some sort of growth defect or some sort of mental defect or whatever it is, like Down syndrome, which is the most common. And it concerned me that those sort of tests are so prevalent and parents are so eager to have those tests done. I get the idea that yeah, sure, they perhaps want to be able to prepare for themselves in case something like that does happen. But it makes me wonder how many times parents find out after these scans that the child maybe is Down syndrome, and then would move to the extreme and abort the child, and these sort of things. When myself and my wife were sitting in the doctor's surgery, I said to them, I don't care if the child is Down syndrome. I'm not even fussed. I just want to make sure that the child is healthy and that the child is not a danger to my wife and that the child is not a danger or anything. I don't care if the child is Down syndrome. It doesn't make any difference to me. So it makes me think that the logic behind it is that they want to find out if the child is Down syndrome so that perhaps they can abort the child. I might be wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's quite prevalent.
No, I think you're right. And just as a test, as a case example, Iceland, for instance, has almost no Down syndrome people, and the reason for that is they abort them all in the womb. So I think that's vile. Exactly what that is. Yeah,
absolutely vile.
And anybody who knows Down syndrome people, they're great. I honestly think that they're in many ways kind of more in touch with the spiritual realm than us, because they don't try to rationalize themselves into doing the wrong thing. They're sort of connected to the logos inherently.
Absolutely. But what's his name did a great video about that.
Yeah, Owen Benjamin.
Owen Benjamin did a great video about that.
Yeah. And he's absolutely correct too.
Down syndrome kids make amazing kids, eh?
No.
They are the most amazing kids to have. A friend of mine's got a Down syndrome kid, and the child is actually an amazing child for them.
Absolutely lovable and kind and gentle.
Very, 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 very nice kids, eh? Amazing
absolutely.
Kids.
Yeah.
And it's like Owen Benjamin said, if you're a farmer and you have a child that has Down syndrome, they'll be great workers. They're strong as hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And they like it. They're like, I'm going to go pick up eggs today. Yeah. They go
exactly. Go ahead.
That's exactly the sort of person you want on a homestead.
Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant. So so moving on, before we move on to the next topics, guys, I want to bring out a couple of memes for the show. So the first one is a South African meme. It will appeal mostly to South Africans. It says, "I love your South African accent. Say it again." And it has that cartoon character whispering in the oak's ear, and it says, "Orogs."
Orogs.
Russell, come on. Russell doesn't get it. Oh, jeez, like Russell.
What do you mean I don't get it? Of course I get it. It's just not that funny.
Piss off, man. And then there's the other one over here where it has the picture of Borat. There's a picture of Borat standing by the turtle, and he says, "What kind of an AR-15 is this?" And he's basically CNN. So
yeah.
And he says, "This is a tortoise." And then this one I thought was pretty funny. It says, and it's also pretty basic. It says nobody, and then white people at music festivals.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. So basic. So much basic bitchery. Burning Man and Africa Burn and all the
Lollapalooza.
yeah.
Bob.
10 signs that you're a basic bitch. You go to music festivals like Burning Man.
To do acid and fornicate to
Yeah,
EDM.
So yeah, I mean, Dylan, do you want to just sort of run us through the introduction for the show before we get into the intricacies?
Yes, sure. So basically, we're going to talk about two points. So the first is basically quality people need to have kids. More kids, more better. If you can support them, if you can have good values that you can instill in your children, more people make the world better. More good people make the world better. And if you are able to basically outbreed the degenerates, that's a good thing. And the second point is regards to abortion, as we talked about, and I titled the point "Stop Sacrificing Your Kids to Moloch." So this has devastating effects both on terms of the moral issue and also the sustainability and longevity of the nation, regardless of whichever one we're talking about. Everywhere that has mass abortion has problems with maintaining the population long term.
And this is the whole idea, Dylan, is that this is why we have mainly an issue with liberals and stuff, is that they believe that things like having children and all of that is a problem, but they have no problem with people having, illegitimate children and having as much sex as possible.
Single moms are saints and sex parties are cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, but don't go and you go and laugh at the family van. You know what I mean? Laugh at the soccer mom with the family van kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
Chase around kids at the beach. Yeah, they're a laughing stock, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like massive orgies and illegitimate children is amazing, fantastic, just perfect. That's the liberal way, my friends. That's the liberal way.
Fortunately.
Well, look, this whole thing, what essentially for abortion to have gotten to these levels, like what Dylan is telling us, abortion must now be at the stage of birth control. They're basically using abortion as birth control, and it's now very arbitrary. So essentially, we've been able to move from contraception via the pill and the morning after pill. Now we've gone in. Now basically abortion, there's just no ways abortion could have reached the levels that it could have today without it being seen as or treated as just another form of contraception.
Yeah. Well, Russell, this is how it started. I think contraception. Okay, so actually where it actually started was the sort of sex outside of marriage, accepting that kind of thing.
This is the whole thing.
So it started with sex outside of marriage, and then it moved on to contraception, and now we're on abortion. And what's the next step? I don't know. Have a child, and after a year later, you're not happy with the child, kill it.
Yeah. No, and they've already gotten to this point in some places already. So in the state of New York, for instance, they just recently passed a law so that hypothetically, if a child is subject to a late-term abortion and they survive, then you can legally neglect the child until it's dead. And that's law in New York now. So
yeah, I remember.
So that's the next step.
That's
to answer your question. Yeah, it's
absolutely satanic.
The next step after this is the push for euthanasia as well. They're interlinked, you see, because eventually what will happen is if you can't abort your kids, you can euthanize them once they're alive and maybe get to the age of 3 or 4, it's basically you can then they'll start pushing this narrative. This is what's going to happen. They're going to start pushing the narrative saying, no, we need to give the children dignity or where they can't live. So we're going to euthanize them. That's going to be the next step. And I'm not being outrageous. I am deadly serious.
Yeah, because there's going to be children.
All these euthanasia proponents, this is where it's going. This is why they want to bring out euthanasia. Sorry to have to tell you, this got nothing to do with human dignity. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, I agree. So all these weird, bleeding heart liberals and stuff that go out on all these stupid Facebook pages, and then Oaks ask, euthanasia, yes or no, and Oaks like, yes, freedom, let them have the freedom to do this, so be free, liberals.
Liberals. Yeah.
Dude, I see you, Oaks.
It's quite strange. My version is this, all right? The way I see it, okay? If I am a terminally ill cancer patient, all right, yes, I'll take the morphine and that sort of thing. But in terms of my worldview, it is my duty, all right, because life is given by God, all right. So I see it as my duty to survive as long as possible. Right, not just to honor God, but to also honor everybody that has also been in the same position before. You know what
Precisely.
I mean? And actually to be brave and dignified in how I respond to it. It's undignified to euthanize yourself because you're basically not inspiring those around you. You know what I mean?
Well, you're not inspiring life, but in those around you, you're inspiring death.
Correct. So you are actually breeding a death cult.
Yeah,
it's
a death cult. It's exactly that. And it's framed. It's framed.
Euthanasia, they irritate me.
Well, and it's framed as Russell. It's framed as It's framed again. This whole liberty shit. These Oaks, these liberals. I'm sorry, I don't care. Liberals, libertarians, soyboys, lolbertarians. You Oaks are. It's framed as this weird sort of my freedoms and my personal freedoms, and no, it's not that. That's that. Okay, sure, maybe for you might view it that way, but it's not how it's going to play out. It never is how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you can't. It's a fundamental misunderstanding about who we are as people and the purpose of life, and just the value of the individual in the spiritual sense. I was listening to a discussion last night on a podcast, and there was this young guy on the show, and he's complaining about, he's like, oh, it's just everything's all bad. He's all black pilled and stuff. And I fundamentally realized this because he has this kind of very sort of materialistic sort of view of the world and people. And he's like, there's so many problems and we got a population and blah, blah, blah. And like, he's like, everyone's fundamentally unhappy. I'm like, what do you mean everybody? Like, I'm doing great. And the main reason is because, my hope isn't really in this world, right? I mean, I accept that the harsh realities of life. I accept that, the state's going to do things to fuck us over. I accept that, I'm going to have heartache at certain points, and, I've already had some difficulties, and that's just part of life. And having a stoic approach to it is fine. That's what you do, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is it's up there. And that's what a lot of people miss in their life. They lack the relationships. They lack the families. They lack having that spiritual connection with God. They lack having, good friends who tell them truth and being of service to their fellow man. That's where you get meaning in life. It's not about, whoever dies with the most zeros in their bank account wins. That's not what it's about.
No, it's exactly that. And I think it's difficult for people to understand this unless they've experienced it in some way, shape, or form. because I know there's millions or billions of people out there that have experienced the same thing that myself and Dylan are experiencing, becoming a father and stuff, and starting to realize what life's really about.
Yeah.
And I think it's like an awakening point for humans when they realize that life is about making a family, having that relationship with God, honoring your wife, honoring your family, looking after them, protecting them. All of those things are the most important things, especially to a man, in life. And I think people are starting to realize that. I guess I'm very sort of optimistic with regards to the sort of exodus towards this sort of realization in men around the world. I just hope that that those men will realize that those trials and tribulations are not possible without God, and they're not possible to do on your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and part of the fun is the struggle in a way. No pain, no gain, as they say. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's very important. And it's sort of interesting. We're kind of getting a little sidetracked here, but I think this is a pertinent point, and it's related to having kids. I was in Bible study the other day, and we were talking about kind of sort of how having. So the Orthodox have this concept of salvation called theosis, where it's a little different than the penal substitution idea that you might find in Reformed theology. And basically what it is that salvation is a present continuous tense, where you are slowly becoming more and more close to the divine, more and more emulating Christ. And it starts now and it continues into the hereafter. And when you
Reformers call that sanctification, not salvation.
Right.
We separate the two.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, Russell. Okay, Russell.
No, it's okay.
Hold your Protestant horses over there.
Oh, Protestant.
I'm just teasing, Russell.
No. I'm glad you chimed that in. But these are related terms, and it's something that all of us can understand. And basically, when you have a family, you become, first off, when you get married, it's no longer about you. It's about your wife also. You share. And then when you have children, it's no longer about just you two. It's about your child and future generations. And then when you have grandchildren, it's about future posterity and making sure that what you have, what is good, you can serve for the future because you're invested in it. And so in a way, the family is kind of this sort of holy, sort of perpetuating stream of goodness. Basically, it broadens your time horizon significantly. And then it's not just about your life and just maxing out your credit card and then doing a bunch of blow in Vegas and dying. It's so it's like go out with a bang. No, because a person with kids who has a good family wouldn't do that. Because it's about saving that nest egg and then having something to pass on to future generations. Just to put a sort of crass financial spin on it. But that's, it's a good analogy.
What that is the antidote to nihilism. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah. And
it's in a real antidote to nihilism.
Yeah.
What's that, Russell?
Absolutely. That is the antidote to nihilism. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So nihilism is pretty much the liberal idea. I think it was that went most deeply into nihilism was probably our best friend Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and I think oh gosh, I lost my train of thought now. But essentially, nihilism is something that liberals revere, because anything that is counter-nihilistic is sort of a restriction on one's freedoms. one's own individual liberties and all of that. So it's something like Jean-Jacques Rousseau clearly viewed his family as a restriction on his own personal liberties. So promptly, the anti-statist gave his children away to the state. What a legend!
Great guy.
What a great guy, you know. Yeah. But anyway, so we're getting sidetracked now. Let's move on to Dylan. You want to go through the reasons for not having kids? Wow.
Yeah. So the reasons that you'll often hear not to have kids is largely due to ecological reasons. So first off, you'll hear the argument, the world's overpopulated, there's going to be ecological impact. I don't want to contribute to that problem. Well, okay, we'll get into the reasons why that's bullshit here in a second. The second part is, and I've heard this a lot from, just it's kind of basic bitch answer, like, I don't want to bring children into a world because, bad things happen, basically.
This world is so evil. Humans are so terrible. I don't want to bring the people. Us humans are so terrible. My dog is a better person than humans,
Exactly. Those kind of people. And you encounter it all the time. I'm sure all of you have. And that's a very common thing. So mostly the main reason is ecology and this half-assed moral argument on the one side. And as far as the overpopulation ecological framework or ecological argument goes, this is actually fairly old. Kind of came out in the 1700s with Thomas Malthus. So people like this are called Malthusians, which is basically the carrying capacity of the world has been reached, and we're all going to start dying of mass starvation. And they've literally been predicting this for centuries, and it hasn't ever panned out. And the only places, and there's this funny graph. I'll send it to you guys later. But it said it was basically saying it's addressing this Malthusian argument, and I think it was NPR says, well, as population increases, then it's going to affect the poor and minorities the most. And then this guy in response just posted this graph. He's like, population in 1980 it was this. Extreme poverty was this. Population present day is quite a bit more, but the extreme poverty rate has dramatically decreased. So there's basically, so there's really no correlation between population growth and, destitution.
That's just basic bitchery mouthing off over there. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Well, nothing. This overpopulation crap.
Guys, generally speaking, that's why I don't believe in experts on TV or experts at the United Nations. I've never bought anything that experts say.
Yeah.
I remember basically whenever somebody says, but the experts say this, I say, my response to that is, I think we've had enough of experts.
The world would be a much better place without experts. I'm tired of all these
experts. I'm so tired of these experts that are so often wrong. I mean, I think we're like the experts the experts told us in the 1960s that the sexual revolution and pornography was going to have no impact whatsoever. But now, like ever since the late 1990s, early 2000s, there's actually scientific studies done on the effects of pornography. And now all those experts are like, just shrug their shoulders and say, oops, we got that one wrong. You know what I mean? I'm tired of experts is all I'm saying. Yeah. Very tired of experts.
Yeah. And instead you have a generation of incels in their mom's basement just whacking off and too demoralized to go out and find the women folk and have children. And
I guess we don't really want demoralized degenerates having children either as well. So.
Well, yeah, that's true. But the thing with that is they're partially demoralized largely because of kind of what Russell was talking about, this sort of toxic culture that sort of infects their mind, I think, to a certain degree.
Absolutely,
So to a certain degree, I think, they're victims, although they do have moral culpability. They're offered the apple and they bit it, basically.
Absolutely.
And as far as the moral argument goes, I don't want to bring children in this world because bad things happen. I mean, it's just such a bullshit answer. That's totally, I mean, materially speaking, there's never been a better time to be born. So if you're worried about your children not, being well off, even if things do get bad, it'll still be better than things were 100 years ago. And people had kids then, so I don't particularly get it. I mean, the world's safer in terms of violent crime. There's more prosperity than ever before. There's tons of opportunities. And I just don't buy that argument at all.
No.
I think so. I think also people, it's quite strange. People don't have a very broad view of human history. They have a very maybe narrow view of like themselves and their parents' sort of era. So their idea of what is prosperity and what is not prosperity is very limited. So they only know what themselves and their parents have told them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that's a very short space of time. You know what I mean? The world's been around a lot longer. If things get bad, they're no. I mean, just think about how bad it was. Really read and really get a understanding about things must have been like 150 years ago. Life was a lot harder. And yet
then
people
150 years ago, people had like 10 kids at a time or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was no so-called resources. I mean, resources available to. There wasn't the Industrial Revolution where you were doing jobs and all that sort of thing. It was quite menial, but people got on with it,
People didn't worry about which private school they're going to send their kids to,
Yeah. No, that's
so
true.
I was about that.
I was listening to this podcast. This guy who lives in Italy. I don't know if you've heard of him, but his name's Vox Day, and he was talking about how in Italy he's an American, and how in Italy a lot of people. Anyways, so basically what he was talking about had to do with the stupid reasons that people didn't have kids in Italy, and his whole point was a lot of Italians will actually only have one kid intentionally because that's all they can afford to put in a designer clothes. I'm like, how dumb can you be? That's just so stupid.
That is sickening. Absolutely sickening.
I can't afford Gucci clothes for more than one kid, so therefore I only have one kid. That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard of in my life.
I'm actually finding it difficult. True.
Well, Russell?
I can. Russell says he finds it hard to believe that it's true.
Yeah. Well, that's what he said.
I can believe, Russell. I can believe that because that's humanistic materialism, and it's rampant. It's all over the place. We go to one of these baby expos, Russell. Go, I dare you, and see what it looks like there. Most expensive pram, 50,000 South African rand. 50,000 for something to push your baby around.
So stupid. And the thing too is, and every culture has their reasons materially for not doing it. So in the U.S., it's I can only afford to send one kid to college, so I'll only have one. And I'm like, why are you sending them to college in the first place? It's just going to be brainwashed. And if they're academically gifted, they'll get scholarships anyways, or they could pay for themselves, like I did. I mean, it's just
and like I did as well. So what's the issue?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is the logic. I think it boils down to people just being not amped to have kids.
Not able to?
Not amped.
Oh, not amped. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely
I think that people are too self-centered, too involved in their own lives that they don't want to share their lives with anyone else. It's hard enough for them to have to share their lives with a wife. So why would you want to share your life with a child?
Yeah, Someone
I
who's
think
dependent on
it
you.
sounds incredibly messed up, but I'm pretty sure there's a large sentiment like that out there.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. It's a lifestyle choice for a lot of these people. They just don't want them, or if they do, they'll insist on having one, because anything more than that, it interferes with their life too much, and they can't go to Virgin Active every day at their set time, and they can't go out and go drinking with their buddies, and yeah, they just
it's materialism. It's people are driven by their passions. People they've conceded far too much to their passions that that they're not willing to give up those things to create a miracle like life, like a child. I mean,
yeah.
There's nothing more. There is no other gift that is greater than the gift of life and a gift from God in the form of a child. I mean, and basically what these people are saying is that their brand new BMW sports car is worth more than the gift of a child.
Yeah.
And think about that for a bit and let that sink in and realize how shallow people have become.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal.
Also, I mean, the thing is, you must remember I'm maybe moving on to Dylan's next point he's got listed here about globalists all agree on Darwinism driving down population. Think of it, what are globalists essentially? They are basically the ones behind pushing a lot of the consumer sort of propaganda. So if you look at the propaganda that's out there, you get this, do this, live this lifestyle, all this, we're just basically saying that people are taking lifestyle above doing what they're called to actually do, and they're not doing the things that their ancestors done through the ages. And now it's all about, people have become consumed with stuff rather. And if you look at it, marketing campaigns and that sort of thing have basically, for the last 100 years, they've pushed this idea that you can live a better life with this thing and that, this and this style, and travel here, do that. Don't waste your time or this career.
Yeah, like the whole meme story that goes around where it says, "Oh, my friends are having kids and I'm here like with a bottle of red wine or whatever it is," or everyone's getting married and I'm here at the airport, or everyone's getting married and having children and I'm here on an island or whatever it is. I mean, it's that kind of. I hate those memes. Grate me to my absolute core. I get furious when I see that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Because it's utter horseshit. The most. Huh?
Those are just basic bitches.
Basic bitches.
But it's true because the most natural thing that humans can do, literally the most normal thing that humans can do, is to create a life and to have babies. That's the most normal thing.
Yeah. No, and it's like what you're talking. Both of you have touched on this with the mass marketing and these bullshit memes. People have these very, very superficial identities of what they are and what their identity is. They identify themselves by what their genitalia is, by their, skin color, by who they fuck, and what sort of board games they like. I mean, it's pathetic. Like, literally. Like, I'm a gamer. Yeah. Okay. What the hell sort of identity is that? Like, I'm gay. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Like,
okay. It's just so shallow.
Yeah. What is that? Like, oh, I'm a gamer. I'm like,
and that's your identity. That's what you want to be known as. Somebody who sits in front of a TV and dies alone.
Yeah.
It's just so sad. I mean, if you peel the layers away, and not even a lot of layers, just the top layer. And I'm not saying these things are bad in and of themselves. It's when you idolatize these things. The term antichrist in the Greek It doesn't mean necessarily against God. What it means is in place of God. That's literally what it means from the Greek.
Yeah.
So you set up something else, not necessarily against God. It kind of is de facto, but you are replacing this thing, go be fruitful and multiply. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, with video games or sodomy or food or fast cars or whatever it is.
It's idolatry. It's humanist idolatry. That's all it is. And people, I think, again, the optimist in me will come out and say, I honestly believe that this kind of behavior is not sustainable. It cannot continue. And I believe that people are going to start. There is going to be some sort of revival. Even if it might not be in a Christian form, I think there is going to be sort of a strong conservative revival where people are going to start having families and stuff. And then myself and Russell were actually talking about this last night. Then what's going to happen is you're going to see that Christianity will start forming almost generic, and people will start becoming more conservative, and then they'll realize, well, hang on, we need something to underpin this now. We need something to sort of cement it, to make it concrete, and then they'll start turning towards Christianity. Again, that's me being a hyper optimist, I guess. But I don't know what are your guys' views on.
No, I think you're right. I think particularly since the early mid 2000s, the whole the sales pitch of secular humanism has largely fallen upon deaf ears, which is why you're seeing more of a turn towards nationalism, and people, they haven't really gotten back to Christianity yet, but they're going back to more things that are real. So nationalism, sort of more and more intolerance to sort of degeneracy that we see coming out of culture in Hollywood. People are starting to become more turned off by it, and I think those sorts of people inevitably, their eyes will turn upward a little bit. You're starting to see that quite a bit. The largest mainline denomination growing in the United States at this time is Orthodoxy. I was just reading an article too about a surprisingly high amount of young women in the United States are opting to become Catholic women religious. So there's, and particularly among the young generational, I'm not so sure if the boomers will ever get the memo, but the younger millennials, some of the millennials and Gen Zers, they're not buying it anymore. And I do think that in the long run we might see a revival of sorts.
I think what Russell made a good point last night as well. Russell, you can I'm paraphrasing at the moment, but you can correct me if I'm wrong with anything. What Russell said basically is that people are starting to kind of realize that their roots are Christian and that people are in fact all Christian, especially in sort of Western cultures and Western civilizations and stuff, that people are Christians, and the good moral beliefs and the moral understanding of the world is all Christian. And people are starting to realize that they are in fact Christian, and it's time to sort of wake up and turn back to those roots.
Yeah. No, I was listening to an interview with Douglas Murray, and he himself is an atheist, but he's not happy about it. His argument is against this sort of rationalistic secular humanism. They said, these people, they claim to be atheists, but they're really not. Like, they think like Christians, they have Christian moral presuppositions, and they dream Christian dreams. Like, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, they're just basically creating a new religion.
Right. The problem is that, at the end of the day, that's sort of that incoherence is unsustainable, which I think is partially connected to this, what do you call it, this anti-human, don't have any kids mentality, to put the scientific phrase.
Absolutely. So that is generally the crux. Okay, is that myself and Russell were also saying this. This is actually quite a good chirp. Russell, you want to say that one? Tell Dylan about the one about the English culture.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day at the Union Jack and said, British culture is actually about British culture. What it actually is people sacrificing their kids, dancing around with animal skins and praising demons. Everything else is Christianity.
It's so true.
It is undeniable. I mean, I don't get why Oaks even try to fight or argue it. It's so obvious and so blatant. It's just silly. It's like the whole abortion argument and stuff. It's starting to reveal itself as, like Russell says, a slippery slope that is eventually going to get way too slippery, and there's going to be no coming back from it. So, with regards to the whole abortion thing, is the biggest argument is the rape argument, and I know Dylan said that you don't write legislation for a few cases and stuff. I think I remember reading somewhere that something like, I think it was 3 or 2% or something of all rapes, all abortions in the US are from rapes. So again, I mean, it's like Dylan said, 90% of abortions are carried out merely because of convenience, just merely as a human sacrifice to Moloch. I mean, legitimately.
When it comes to things like rape, I mean, the thing is, you can actually to throw the wild these secular wolves a bone. The authorities, what they could do, all right, if they just to kind of get the guys off their back. I mean, could actually a country like South Africa, where rape got actually high levels, right? You could say things like this: that, all right, okay, the woman gets raped, all right, that's the procedure, all right. Here's the medical care she gets with her rape, which includes things like, I know it's an ethical problem, but at least you don't have to. You can at least not have to perform abortions. You can actually give them the morning after pill. All right, as part of policy. You get what I'm saying? At least you're not performing abortions. We know it's a bit of a problem because but I mean, then at least you can at least tell them, you can at least get away with not having to have abortions, and then that's the problem solved. Then what next? What next? People, what else do you want us to do? It's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a look. It is a concession that us as Christians might just have to make in this modern degenerate world that we live in with regards to the morning after pill and all of that. It is a concession. But I mean, like Russell says, it's way better than having to go to the extreme where you're legitimately cutting up babies' limbs and stuff in the womb of a mother. I mean, it's just
you're not doing it arbitrarily. You're not doing it arbitrarily either. You're doing it for a specific exceptional case. You know what I mean? And so the arbitrariness is not there. You know what I mean?
Precisely.
You're not.
But it's also the whole
thing.
Russell also came up with a very interesting idea, Dylan, with regards to the whole women's rights argument, because it's all just about the woman. Okay, so, but, a woman has, I think, about 4 different rights that they can use or utilize before they have to go and abort the child. So the first right in my mind, is the right of association. So the right of people that you hang out with, and all that. The second right is the right to choose a mate. So to choose who you want to have sex with, because the woman is always the one that chooses who they want to have sex with. Okay. Obviously, we've spoken about the rape issue and stuff. Okay. But the woman is generally, when it's a consensual relationship, the woman is generally the one that chooses who they're going to.
Men propose, women dispose.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then the third choice is the option of contraception.
Right.
Okay? So contraception and stuff is also, as a Christian, as Christians, it's also a difficult one, but it's also a consignment or concession that we will have to make. You know what I mean? And then the fourth right is the right to the morning after. Okay. If they really, I mean, why is it that they have to make use of the fifth right, which is abortion, so-called right as a woman? Why do they have to go through all four of these other rights that they have available to them and go straight directly into the fifth right? I'll tell you why it is. It's because they're not taking this responsibility to put these four other rights into place before they have to go into the extreme of going and aborting their child at 12 or 13 weeks, whatever it is. It's utter nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of these people, they want to travel the world, have sex with strangers, and don't like birth control because it gives them acne or whatever.
12 or 13 weeks. My daughter is 12, is 13 weeks old, okay?
Yeah.
And she moves inside that womb. She's a living, breathing, beating heart. And you go and cut that up, slice it into a million pieces. It's sick. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Clump of cells, man.
The thing is, all right, the argument is it's my body, I've got control over my body. Well, how about putting control over your body?
Exactly.
You know, how about having control over your body then? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm in control of my own. I don't know if you're in control of your own body if you have to go for an abortion. I don't think you are in control. It shows me that you're not in control, actually.
100%, Russ.
Yeah, no, it's and the thing too is these things aren't reconcilable, you know. So on the one hand, they want the sexual liberation, but no consequences, and there is a consequence. There's always going to be, whether it's a moral one in terms of abortion, or if you opt for the abortion, or when you opt for abortion, or if you decide not to and sacrifice your lifestyle. You know, all these things have consequences.
So, guys, I just want to, Dylan, do you want to, we've kind of gone through this sort of the scourge of abortion and what kind of an absolute disaster it is for any nation.
Total shit show.
It's just an absolute, total shit show. I don't get it. I don't know why. Okay, I do know. Well, we do know why.
We've been talking about it.
I just don't understand why people support it so strongly when their argument is so clearly wrong.
Yeah, and the thing too, and you're right to say when people support it, because a lot of these, particularly feminists, will say, this is patriarchy trying to tell women what to do. Well, if you look at approval of abortion based on gender, women are at least as anti-abortion as men are. So it's not just us. I mean, just ask Lauren. She'll be lighting up the torches right now, you know.
Yeah.
So she's I mean, women are so to say this is just a male opinion or whatever, it's total bullshit. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone who's more anti-abortion than my mom. Just an example. It's anecdotal, but I mean, all you got to do is look at polling data. I mean, this is not a male-female issue. This is a moral issue, and it always has.
All the women in my life vehemently against abortion. All the women in my life, but you see, the thing is, I have good quality women in my life. You see, I surround myself with good quality women. I don't surround myself with feminist weirdos who believe that a child's life is worthless and it's just a clump of cells.
Yeah. No, and like what you're saying, Russell, just to go into some stats here, but another problem with abortion is the long-term sustainability of it. So when you have this sort of materialistic, frankly, sad to say it, liberal sort of value system where it's about individual liberation and stacking the Benjamins, as we say in the U.S., then you have a lot of problems in terms of the long-term viability of your society. So in the United States, for instance, if you of the population across the board is below replacement levels. So even in the U.S., on average, particularly amongst white Americans, they're not even having 2 kids. I think it's like 1.5. It's shockingly low. But if you eliminate abortion, the amount of abortions, then all of a sudden the population dips up to a sustainable level. It's not growing, but it's not falling. In other countries, it's even worse. In Russia, for example, they basically use abortion as kind of the go-to contraceptive, or they used to. In the Soviet Union, that was very, very commonplace. And it's thankfully the abortion rates have come down significantly, and I don't think it's a coincidence that with the end of communism and the sort of reassertion of Christianity in that country, it's coming down. And not only that,
I've seen it dropped quite strong from the sort of late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, the Yeltsin era was a really bad time for that. It was a really bad time for Russia in general. But not only do you see abortion going down, but birth rates are going up for the first time in a long time. And
the height of the Soviet Union, you see the abortion rate in this graph is like just straight through the roof.
Yeah, it was absurd. And just to sort of put an idea out there for people listening, in 2001, Russia had about 1.1 million abortions performed for 1.3 million live births. So yeah, that's that's terrible. They had about 1.5 times as many abortions as they had live births. So it's a disaster. I mean, there's no way you can sustain a nation with abortion rates like that. It's just not feasible.
That's outright genocide. Then.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're
outright. There's no framing that in any other frame. That is genocide. That is legit.
It's terrible, and it's not as bad as it was. It's still bad in Russia, but it's significantly come down from then. But I mean, you look at the problem, and there it is. It's like, why? How come our population's in decline? It's because you're just like killing billions of children in the womb. Stop doing that, you won't have a problem. So declining population in Western countries, a lot of it is just due to this sort of spoiled middle class brat mentality. They're like, I want to have a career, I want to travel the world, I want to have sex with a bunch of strangers, and I don't like birth control because it makes I'm not as horny, and I want to have sex with strangers in Brazil or whatever it is.
My number one goal is to mark every country on the map.
It's about going to electronic dance music festivals and getting notches. And then they want to
taking pictures of my rear end and putting them on Instagram.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's terrible. And then then they get a career and they become tax serfs, and then they get older and then they start panicking, and by then it's too late. So and if they're lucky, they'll have 1 kid, maybe 2, but the population's not growing. Across Europe we see that demographics are below replacement levels. It's also very low in East Asia, so Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, Korea. They're all having these problems, but you are starting to see an uptick. And I guess the last thing I have to say is there was a study done by, I don't know if it was a study done by him, but there was this lecture by this sociologist Robert Stark. He's about the only sociologist I respect. And he was talking about fertility rate. And the one demographic of people that is having above replacement fertility rates consistently across the continent are married, church-going Christian women who attend services more than once a month. They're okay.
Wow, what a shock. What a
Yeah.
shock.
So basically, people like us, we'll be fine.
Ooh,
But
shocker.
But and this goes back to the whole good people need to have more kids thing. It looks like good people are having more kids. So, so I guess that's the one positive takeaway is as
So hopefully we can outbreed the degenerates, like you said.
yeah. So hopefully, within 50 years' time, you and I will be old, and then we'll have just replaced all the liberals with a bunch of reactionaries due to no other fact than that they're too busy playing. Due to the fact that they're too busy playing video games to get laid and commit to a woman.
Awesome. Keep that up. Keep up the good work, degenerates. Keep on keeping on playing those TV games.
Yes. Your genes will be shot into a Kleenex, and mine will colonize Mars.
Interesting that you talk about just a quick side note. Up until about the Industrial Revolution, or I think up until at least the First World War, most men that had ever lived did not pass on their genes.
You're right. Yeah, the women would have a lot of children, but there was, and that was due to a number of factors. So a lot of women dying in childbirth. So that sort of cut down on the supply of women in all. So there was less of them to sort of go around amongst the males. And then a lot of males died young, violently in war, or stricken with disease, so on and so forth. So yeah, it was a rough and tumble time.
So it's a prime opportunity to make children and stuff, guys. The world is not overpopulated. Thank you. All you basic bitches out there saying, where are we gonna put everyone, guys? Where are we gonna
the problem is the population. There's overpopulation. There's no such thing as overpopulation. There's such a thing as a population bubble where you paid people welfare for doing nothing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because all work out very naturally, nature would take its course, and if basically what's supposed to happen is your low IQ, low sort of person, low skilled sort of person is to sustain themselves has to keep working and working and working and working and working without welfare and sitting around and doing, because if people sit around and do nothing, they pass the genes on and they just make babies, and their genes are bad genes. They're not the high IQ genes, So natural eugenics basically is supposed to sort out where somebody that is born into a sort of is not that well gifted spends too much time working to sustain themselves that they can't breathe. All right. And then what happens is that's how the nation and the group and the human population gets stronger without having and is replaced as well.
Yeah.
So you don't. And what's happened at the moment is because of social welfare paying a whole lot of lowlifes to have kids. All right. They just sit around making babies all day, creating a terrible social environment for everybody. And that's the population bubble that we've got at the moment.
Yeah,
that's the numbers. It's not the numbers that are the problem. It's that you're paying people to sit at home and have kids, not to work, not to pay their way in life, and to just make more degenerate kids. And that's the problem,
And not to be married, also.
Breeding more oxygen.
Yeah, well, look, that's the thing. That's the other thing. Single motherhood is a big thing of the welfare state. I forgot to mention that.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. See, so there's that pesky little thing, because the problem is as well is that these social manipulators, globalists, and powers that be, they always think they can manage a situation. You know, they always think they almost get trapped in their own little schemes. No, it's overpopulated. No, we need replacement. No, you know, they're always trying to manipulate and thinking they're far too clever for their own good. You know, they really think they're smart, but then they realize they're actually quite dwarf. Oh wait, we got that one wrong. We need to fix it here. Don't worry, we'll sort it out. We got it wrong. Wait, sorry. We got the. Just let the natural order take its course. You know,
everything will be fine.
And everything will be fine. I'm a great believer. I mean, they want to bring in all sorts of funny things like eugenics, but like man-made eugenics. What I've just explained to you is the natural eugenics, which is supposed to take place. You know, there is such a thing as natural eugenics. Which I've just explained how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. And
we interfere with the natural order of things. The natural eugenics replaces it with our own weird eugenics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Russell, I think, and Dylan, I think we're just about ready to wrap it up. Do you guys want to give some closing statements?
I'll just keep it short. And simple. Get God, get a woman, have kids, don't be a degenerate. There we go.
So that's the Reactionary's slogan. Get Jesus, get a wife, get a family, get a gun, and stay reactionary. Russell?
What I say is that stop listening to the experts about how society should work. We know how society should work. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Stop listening to experts. I'm done. Yeah.
And stop listening to your whore friends in university.
They're also experts. So they also consider themselves experts as well. You know.
Experts
stay away from those bar hugging
slatterns.
Slatterns, yeah.
Slatterns and those.
Yeah, slatterns and that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember to subscribe, to like, go and check out our Twitter page. Dylan manages that nice and tightly. Go and check out our Facebook page. I'll post the links in the description below. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Stay reactionary out there because
God will